I would also like to add my thanks for everyone who's here, and in particular to Mayor Paris, to Bill Gross, to David Crane, and the team from the city that really helped to make this work, and to Google for financing it. This is really a critical moment. In 1961, President Kennedy said, "I believe space is the new ocean. We must learn to sail on it." Well, here we are in a valley with a backdrop of wind turbines and a first of its kind in the United States solar thermal power plant. It is ground zero for that new world of clean energy that we're going to have to not only master, but make exceedingly profitable to really get the kind of scale up we're talking about. I'd like to focus my comments a little bit on the innovation pathways needed to do so, but I also want to use it as an opportunity to speak about why facilities like this are so vital, because they do what we all talk about, but we rarely do, and that is to put the incredible innovative capacity. And the United States leads the globe in innovative capacity in terms of patents and scientists and technicians and people thinking on the policies to make it work. But we do not lead the world right now in deployment. And that's a huge loss. That essentially means that we innovate and others commercialize. And when we heard from Dan Riker that 1 out of 5 of the top wind companies in the world are U.S. and 1 out of this and that, those all speak to the degree to which we have innovated but have not commercialized and capitalized. E-solar is an example of bucking that trend and in fact building the new trend we need for this coming century. And just to highlight how absolutely critical it is, it's not only that China invests more in renewable energy than we do. I came back 4 days ago from Portugal, so little Portugal, that invests more in renewable energy than does the United States. In fact, with technologies largely wind and solar developed in Western Europe and at U.S. national laboratories, Portugal peaks at over 40% of their electricity from renewable energy. 40%. On the best possible day, the United States, with this amazing innovative capacity, with the best wind and solar resources and exceptional offshore wind and ocean energy, with the best mixture of innovation and resources in the world, we peak at a tiny bit over 2% wind and solar combined. So we are not taking advantage of this kind of capacity. And as a fellow former employee student at Caltech, I'm delighted to see the connection. You have remarkable resources nearby. The story of places like e-solar, though, I think really highlights our ability to change that in a hurry. 4 years ago, almost all analysts of the clean energy economy would point to Denmark with their goal of 20% wind, and Germany on a path to get close to that as well, and really bemoan the lack of the ability to do this here. We've developed the technologies, we've not yet put them into operation. Well, sometime later in 2010, Texas alone is going to eclipse Germany as a country as the global leader in wind. California gave up its U.S. leadership position in wind power installed a little while ago, but our mixture of wind and solar here is unmatched in any major industrial state or nation. So the capacity is here. The sort of innovative push to get this project put in place that you heard described from the city staff and the mayor here means that our ability to turn this around is unprecedented. California has one of, if not the best, greenhouse gas law in the world, calling for a reduction by about 25% of our emissions by 2020, and a goal in 2050 of a full 80%. That has now been echoed and augmented by plans of the Obama administration, by plans in the European Union. But to make any of those plans better than just good paperwork or better than just good PowerPoint, as I've heard recently as one of the statements, we have to see real projects happen. All of that wonderful fonts and wonderful paperwork about greenhouse gas roles, job creation, etc., won't happen unless there's a clear industrial base to build on. It's the e-solars that are going to be critical to make that happen. And so when you read in the programs about not only this initial facility, but plans to build 250 megawatt facilities elsewhere in California and large 90 megawatt facilities in New Mexico, you're really seeing the ability for this country and for innovative entrepreneurs in cities and states to turn on a dime, to do what happened with wind in Texas, to eclipse the so-called global leaders in an instant if we can put it all together. And so I think the real critical lesson here is that, of course, we need to become and maintain our leadership as the technology innovator, but it's really the deployment leader that makes this process go. One of the neat features of eSolar that you heard about in the previous comments was that no single component is actually bigger than just a few feet across. Well, I've visited energy facilities, be they large synthetic oil plants or wind turbines, where they had to worry about, we can't get the turbines there, we can't get the facilities there because they're too big for the underpasses on the roads. They require special helicopters and cranes to get them in. The ability to deploy at scale with easy-to-ship materials like eSolar means that individual cities can decide to implement, that valleys, that states can do so, and this same technology that can be used to power our energy here can also be used where the demand for energy around the world is growing most rapidly, and that's in developing countries. So I work extensively in East Africa, where the ability to think about large grids is not present. But the ability to build facilities like this and to buy them from the best and most nimble companies is there. And to power up the regional economic development centers, be they in East Africa, South Asia, South China, etc. This sort of technology is not only a way to go green here, but it's also to be a huge export leader precisely at a time when the United States has a terrible imbalance in our balance or unbalance of trade. So the ability to see these kinds of projects from PowerPoint into practice and to create those green jobs that everyone, including myself, talk about so regularly is really the exciting lesson here. This kind of project is one where cities, individual employers and employees, disadvantaged communities can all take a huge economic gain while we essentially build that energy economy that we all know has to come, and that is a low or no carbon economy. But to do that, we have to have these kinds of companies succeed, and you can hear from the comments today that it's the sort of public-private partnerships that make that go. So I really want to salute everyone for making that happen. I look forward to watching the tower power up, but I more importantly look for the rest of you to take these stories back to your communities, states, companies, and to see this sort of model spread as quickly as it possibly can. That's what we critically need, both on an environmental basis but also economically. So thank you all so much for being here today, and thank you for making this happen.